Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the seller and the business to help them make a buying decision further down the line. Today we'll be talking about a digital product business for sale, and I have the seller with me today, who's Tim. Welcome to the show, Tim. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show with us. Just before we talk more about it, let me just go over a brief summary of the business. So today's listing is a digital product business that was created in June 2015 in the gaming niche. The average monthly revenue for the business is $14,706, and it makes an average of $10,287 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are a domain and all the site's contents and files, an additional domain, source codes for software and downloadable content, and a humble bundle account. You can head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 52367 to learn more about the business. And if you want to start your due diligence, just remember to unlock the listing first. So Tim, that's a very general overview about the business, but let's find out about yourself, just about your background in building and running online businesses.
Sure. I've been building and running online businesses since the late 90s and focused on it a little bit more seriously starting early 2000s all the way up until today. And generally speaking, I build software or websites or services that I would use myself or that my friends would use. And then if it's something that I like and my friends like, I take it a little bit further and then offer it to the public as a product or a service to sell.
Yeah, that's awesome. It definitely sounds like you got a lot of skin in the game there. So this business in particular is a digital product business. Can you share with me how you got the inspiration to start this one?
Yeah, so I think it all started one day. I was in my car in front of a Starbucks on a laptop trying to play World of Warcraft. And I noticed that my laptop that I bought maybe 3 or 4 years ago wasn't able to play the game as good today as it could back then 3 or 4 years ago. And as I dug into it a little bit more, I realized it was because my laptop had too many pieces of software installed, too many things running at once, and it just slowed down the overall performance of World of Warcraft. So I had an idea of what if I made a piece of software that managed things running on my laptop a little bit better and could devote more of my laptop's power to World of Warcraft and less to the spreadsheets that I was editing and the Skype conversations that I had in the background. So I did that. I created a software to manage resources on my laptop a little bit better, and it enabled World of Warcraft to perform a little bit better. I took that piece of software then, gave it to a few of my friends who actually played World of Warcraft as well, and they all liked it. They all said it worked great. And then took that a few more steps further and further and further until there was an end product that a normal person could use who wasn't technically superior to the average person, and it made their gameplay a little bit better. And all of a sudden I realized that this product that I made for myself worked for the large amount of people who tried it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand the pain being a gamer myself. Yeah, just how technology sort of moves along, and what used to be okay, with the subsequent updates for the games that we end up playing just aren't enough, and then it ends up forcing us to have to upgrade our systems, and sometimes we can't really afford it. So especially with today's market prices and graphics cards and stuff like that, goodness me. So that makes sense. Can you just share with our listeners, how does the business make money then?
Sure. So the business sells a piece of software, and then it sells a few different add-ons to that software. And these add-ons are things that I've created over the years, and they're actually all created in response to customers having a request. So right now you can buy the piece of software, you install it, you use it, and it works. And some customers have come to me saying, can you add, feature X or feature Y? I do a little bit of investigation, and sure enough, I can. And so I create a sort of add-on to the software that somebody can buy for a few dollars more. And that's pretty much how it goes. The people who use the software are my biggest source of marketing, you could say. A person will use the software, they'll love it, they'll tell their friends that they use it and that they love it, and it just grows from there. And with the current landscape of PC gaming, it's a very competitive one. And so anything that a person can do to give them a little competitive advantage is worthwhile. And I think that's another thing that's helped word of mouth and my consumers be the sort of marketing force behind my software.
Yeah, I think that makes definitely a lot of sense there. The business is doing quite well. So why are you thinking of selling it instead of staying with it and growing it?
My personal passion is to create new things. I love looking at a business space or otherwise an area that can be improved upon. And so the things I really like to do are to create new pieces of software, new web services, things like that. I'm not too interested, let alone skilled, in managing something long term. I'm not familiar with how SEO works. I'm not familiar with keywords. I am familiar with building products. So what I personally do is I tend to build something, have an idea, build it myself, or maybe hire a team, get it to market, keep it on market for maybe a year or two. During that time, I can have a lot of revisions. I can improve upon it. Once I think it's near perfect, then my interest in the product tends to teeter off, and I tend to focus on something new. Right now, I'm about a year to a year and a half in a new startup of mine, and it takes all of my focus. And realistically, I've let this particular piece of software kind of fall aside. So my goal is to exit this software so I can focus on a new business that I have, so I can inject all my funds into that and basically think about that exclusively. And that's really where my passion is. It's building new things, not so much holding on to something, or even not so much marketing something. I'm more interested in the building of something than the long term or even the making of money. It's more interesting just to build things for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely makes sense. Let's dive a bit into your learnings. As you're scaling this business in particular, is there anything that you learned that you would apply to future sites or businesses?
Absolutely. One of the largest things I would learn is I'm from the United States, and when I build something, I tend to build it for my peers. One thing from this project that I've learned is that there are PC gamers all over the world. In some markets, there are more PC gamers than there are in the United States. When I initially created this product, it was just for the English audience only. Over time, I started adding in language translations for other markets. And I have found that even though I target specifically the US market, my largest consumer base is actually from China. So if I were to think about lessons learned and how to apply something from this to another project of mine, I would say open the product up right away with more than one market. It may do fantastic in other markets as well, just like this software has done fantastic in China, Turkey, Germany, a lot of non-US, non-North American markets.
Gotcha, makes sense. Well, I guess on the other hand, was there anything that you tried that didn't really give you the ROI you were looking for?
I would say yes and no, and my answer is going to be as extreme as it could be, and that is with marketing. I know almost nothing about marketing. When I say marketing, I mean advertising on Google or how keywords or ranking or search page results. I really don't understand that. And honestly, I don't have any interest in understanding that. And so as far as what I've done that hasn't worked, it's kind of cut both ways. At one point years ago, I dumped a lot of money into marketing this product. I spent like halfway to $100,000 marketing this product. My sales grew astronomically. Just some months, the sales were unbelievable. What I couldn't figure out was what was successful. Was it the Google advertising? Was it advertising on Twitter? Was it advertising on Reddit? I couldn't figure that out. So I spent some time trying to figure it out. I did some advertising on one platform, some on another, and I couldn't figure it out. And I couldn't see what magic I hit at one point, what exactly I did. And I spent a couple months trying to figure this out, and I just lost interest. And at that point, I just stopped advertising altogether. So what could have I done better? Maybe learn more about advertising, learn more about what works. I did do something that worked. I just wasn't quite sure what it was. And it me personally, ended up being just something that I'm not as interested in. So I think that kind of leads into what could be done for this particular product to, ramp up the sales considerably.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. I guess let's just dip into the marketing side of things, because you were mentioning about, trying that and going, not knowing so much about SEO and all that. So what do you currently do in terms of marketing for the business right now?
So right now I do absolutely no marketing. I haven't done any marketing efforts in, I would say, 3 to 4 years right now. And that means I've spent $0 on marketing. I don't have any social platforms to talk about the product. I don't have any of that. In the past, I did do some advertising, and at some points it was wildly successful, but I couldn't figure out what was successful, what platform I advertised on. And to be honest, I just don't have an interest in trying to sit down and figure out how marketing works. At some point, I even bought a couple books on Google advertising and other things, and it was overwhelming for me to try to learn marketing. It was overwhelming to try to figure out and fine tune. And so in the past, maybe 4 years ago to 5 years ago, I dabbled in some marketing. It was successful, but I just couldn't figure it out. And like I said earlier, I really enjoy creating new things. I'm not the type of person who likes marketing or kind of pushing the business of things. So right now, I don't do any marketing at all. I'm very lucky that this product has such a vibrant consumer base. The word of mouth marketing is what drives the sales of this product. And so people who use it talk about it, their friends see that they use it, and the platform that it's on now contributes to the kind of the self-marketing of the product. So it really is completely hands-off as far as marketing goes. I do think that there is a large amount of opportunity that is missed if somebody had marketing skill sets and somebody had that sort of interest. It's just the skill sets that I have, I just don't possess that sort of knowledge. I think somebody who did possess that knowledge could really do phenomenal with a product like this.
Yeah, no, that's great. Definitely makes sense what you're saying. Marketing isn't necessarily everyone's forte, or like you say, where the interests lie, but there definitely sounds like there's more room, opportunity for growth there, which we'll dive into a bit later. Let's just talk about the day-to-day operations of the business. Can you just describe what you do to maintain the business?
Absolutely. And the answer is really nothing. There have been months that have gone by where I have done absolutely nothing. So if somebody were to ask me how much time do you put in this business, there are months going by where I put 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 time whatsoever. And it really is the nature of this piece of software and how it self-markets, how the software is highly refined. And when I say highly refined, I mean that there isn't any bugs in the software. There's no crashing. There's no giant support issue. There isn't any of that. The nature of the product and the interaction that I've had with my customers in the past has allowed me to refine it to such a degree. Some months I may spend an hour a month, maybe even up to an hour a week. But that amount of time is really just reading reviews, seeing if there's a situation that a whole bunch of customers are facing. So checking support forums. This product does have a support forum. It's mainly led by customers supporting other customers, but sometimes I may check it from time to time. To this date, there's never been any sort of glaring issue that needs addressing. And so from the perspective that I have had, things are self-sufficient, things run themselves. I can disappear off into another country for months at a time, knowing that every month a deposit is made into my account for the proceeds from the software. And that's how it's been for years. So the amount of time day-to-day operations is, if you wanted to keep this as is, it would be to mirror what I do now, which is very little. There's a lot of room for growth, but it depends on where you'd want to take things. But as it is right now, I've spent at the absolute most, I would say an hour a week, but it's really closer to an hour a month, if even that.
Yeah, no, great. Definitely sounds like it's a very hands-off operation right now. Let's talk more then about the opportunities. If you did stay with the business, what would you say are some of the ways you would try to grow it?
Oh, absolutely. So I think one of the things I really like about this business, and this is something that I have thought about personally, if I wasn't knee-deep in another startup of mine, I would actually create a second version of this software. And what I mean by that is general to the software industry. If a company comes out with a piece of software, they generally follow up with a second version, a third version, and so on. For example, there may be, super software 2020, and then when 2021 comes around, they make a 2021 version of it. Or maybe they have some super software and then they make a version 2, or maybe you make an advanced version of it. There's always room to grow a successful software into a new version that has a newer user interface, maybe some extra features that your customers have asked for. And that's no different for this software. So if I was not working on my new startup, I would continue development of what I'm calling the advanced version of my software. Now, there has been significant user feedback, people saying, hey, are you coming out with a new version? If you are, could it have these type of features? What are you thinking? And I've compiled some of these things into a semi-development plan. I've even registered new domains for this new type of software. I just haven't had the time to build it myself. And honestly, I'm more interested in the new startup that I have. So as far as what opportunity is there for growth, there would be an extremely large opportunity to create a new version of the software. And I already have some of the development plans for that created. And whoever should acquire this, they're going to get everything. They're going to get, in addition to the existing software, the assets, everything, they're also going to get the development plans that I have for the second version of the software, the domain that goes along with that. And the special thing about this software is all the customers that have it now, if I were to create, or if a buyer were to create a new version of the software, they can market that to the existing customer group that they have now. So let's say there's 300,000 to 400,000, however many customers there are, all of those customers can get a notification that, hey, there's a second version of the software, go check it out. And the potential for revenue there is absolutely enormous. And so if I wasn't working on my new startup, I would absolutely continue development, flush out the development plans, talk a little bit more with my customers, kind of refine things, and I would absolutely make, a second version of the software.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's lots of room for growth here. I just want to follow up because I forgot to ask earlier. Is a developer required if someone wanted to take over the business and just maintain it?
It's a good question. If you were to maintain it, no. The software is, at this point, it is so refined that there has not been a need for any updates for a very long time. No developer is going to be needed to maintain it. The only caveats would be if Windows has a significant change that renders all software unable to function, then maybe there would be an update needed. But as far as I know, in the history of Windows, that's never happened. That being said, the software itself, the source code, for example, is very well written. It's very well documented. And part of the process of working with a buyer could absolutely be to review the source code or even review what would be needed to hire a new developer. So as it is, to maintain it, no. If you did want to create a second version, then yes. And I can absolutely help a buyer, even with hiring a developer. I currently work with about a dozen developers across, my new startup that I have, and I work and am partnered with different contractor website resources out there to hire developers of all sorts. And if a buyer needed help, if a buyer wanted to create a new piece of software, a new update, I absolutely could help with what type of developer you need. I could even help with interviewing the developer, that whole process.
Yeah, that's great to hear. What would you say are some of the biggest risks with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
So for this particular business, I would say the biggest risk is probably also one of the largest positive details about this business, and that is that it exists primarily on one marketplace right now. And there's the whole adage of not having all your eggs in one basket. For this product, the only risk that it has is the majority, if not all of the sales, come from one distributor that I have. So I would say from a risk standpoint, if that one distributor were to disappear, there would be some issues. Now, I also say it's a positive thing because this distributor is the largest seller of software and games in the world, and they reach all markets worldwide. And it's a mega billion-dollar company. So there's no chance that I think this distributor goes away at all.
Yeah, that's really useful to know. Last three questions from me, Tim. How much support are you offering buyers?
So before I answer that, I want to make it clear that this is a market that I've been in for over 2 decades. It's a market that I'm going to be in, hopefully for more than 2 decades in the future. And the absolute last thing I want to do is turn my customers over to a new entity and just leave them in the dust. And it's not just for a feeling of loyalty to my customers, but I create new products in this market. And if I were to abandon my customers, I think it would damage my standing in this market. And I think that would hurt me financially. So my answer to this is out of both a financial interest and out of loyalty to my customers. And so the transition of this to a buyer, on paper, I would say a month of support via email or Skype as part of the sale. But I also want to say that if a couple months down the line or something, the buyer had a question, maybe a couple months down the line, the buyer said, hey, I want to pursue a new version of the software. Can you give me some tips for what I need for a developer? I'm always going to be here. And it's not so much about the terms of sale between this and this product and a buyer. It's more out of loyalty to my customers, and it's more out of, wanting to have a good standing in this market that I serve. So as far as specifically for the sale, I would say 30 months of support, Skype, responding as fast as I can. But like I said, if a buyer had any questions months in the future, wanted to get my thoughts on something, I'm an email away.
Yeah, it's really great to hear that, obviously you value your customer base so much. Obviously you spent, years nurturing them and supporting them and giving them the best service possible. And it's great to hear that will also translate into some support for the buyers as well to continue that. Are you willing to commit to a non-compete?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's with whatever deal gets worked, I think it's important to be honest and upfront. And kind of back into the question about supporting the buyer, I want to make sure that this transaction is successful to the buyer and that they, get everything out of it that they are looking to get. And that includes, not competing with them.
That's great to hear. Are you open to negotiating seller financing, like an earnout?
I thought about that a bit, and I think my answer is no. And the answer is no because I have a new startup that I've been working on, and I'm about a year and a half into it. And the reason why I'm selling this business is so I can generate funds to put into that new startup, but it's also so I can kind of mentally focus on that new startup. And so having an earnout would be just another detail that I would have to keep track of. And I think I just want to put all the funds and, all the focus on the new startup that I have.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, and that's good to know as well. Last question from me, Tim. If you put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why would you say this is a business that's worth buying?
Well, one of the things, so I have sold and bought businesses in this market, and I've sold maybe a dozen businesses, and I've bought maybe 3 or 4 businesses. And so I think I have that perspective of how to sell a business and then how to buy a business and how to do it as easy as possible. And so whenever I build a product, I build it with the intent to exit it as absolutely smoothly as possible. So for this particular project, I have always maintained a checklist. If I needed to exit this, here's a checklist. I transfer domains. This is where the source code lives. How easily can I transfer accounts with my partners? I've maintained a checklist. I've kept it up to date. And my goal when I exit this, just as with any business, my goal is to do it as absolutely seamless as possible. I want to make sure that the buyer has a wonderful transaction, and I want to make sure it's as smooth as possible. I want to make sure nothing's missed, because that's what I would want as a buyer as well. So as far as what a buyer could look forward to, well, a buyer could look forward to, first of all, something that's done honestly and with integrity. But I think they should look forward to somebody who wants to partner with them on the actual transition of this product. I think this as an asset is maybe a little bit easier than other businesses that are bought and sold. But even said, I've assembled everything, it's ready to transition, and I'm there to help a buyer with really anything, whether it's ordering a server or understanding the flow of how you work with my distribution partners or really anything. I'm there to help. I'm there to help within the 30 days. If something happens months later, I'm an email away. And, really, I want this to be a positive experience for everybody involved.
Yeah, that's really good. Tim, is there anything you'd like to share that you think I might have missed?
I think you've been very thorough. And I think if I were to talk to a buyer face to face, I think I would probably cover a lot of the things that, a lot of the questions that you had. And, all my answers are, from the heart. So I would probably answer the exact same way. Maybe the biggest thing that I would mention really is that this project was built to be able to seamlessly transition to a buyer. And in every area where this project has an asset, it was built to transition. So, for example, I have a folder that's called support. And in that folder, I have maybe 10 different questions and answers. So over the years that this product has existed, initially, mostly, not so much now, but in the very beginning, there is some basic questions of how do I do X? How do I use this software to do Y? Well, I've kind of summarized these things in such a fashion where I can actually just copy and paste, answers to common questions. And I did that not only for myself, but for a buyer. So if somebody wanted to know how do I interact with a customer, what are some of the answers, I've got documentation for all of that. If a buyer had a question for how do I do X with your software or Y, I've got documentation for that. The source code is all documented. I have development environments that I've actually created with the intent to transfer to a buyer. So, for example, I have a portable Windows virtual machine environment, and that means I can copy this virtual desktop to a buyer, and that buyer can open up this virtual desktop and automatically have all the tools and all the ways to view the source code, to compile it, to turn it into the final product. The development process is even smoothed out and streamlined. So really, this product was built to transition, and every single detail with this product, I have historics on all the graphic assets that are being used. I have historics for everything. I mean, it really is a product that was built to sell. It's just at what point do I sell it? When do I sell it? How much detail is transferred over? All the different portions of it. It's from the ground up, it was built to sell. So when a buyer were to look at this, or if they were to look at this, I'm not sure the best way to get that message across, but really, this is like I said, maybe my 10th or 11th or 12th exit of a product that I have. And every single exit I have, I learn new things, and I take those new lessons learned into the new startup that I have. And, hopefully the new startup that I have will be able to exit even smoother, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've put a lot of effort in to document all the different processes to make sure that the transition is as seamless as possible for the buyer. So that's really great news. Tim, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope that your business gets acquired by the right buyer in the very near future.
Thank you. It's great speaking with you.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 52367. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked the listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.